Hello, everybody. I hope this is your last session for the day. And we have prepared some interesting use case around OpenAMI. We just heard about Geisa and MI 2.0. This is kind of the next level for the world beyond the round meter of US and the square meter of Europe. And I just want to briefly introduce our speakers today. As you can see, we are one short, but I really want to acknowledge Michel Fripiat with REI Cameroon, which is the originator and the reason we started on this journey with Daniel from NESL Foundation, and I'm Arila with Energy IoT Open Source. And I'll hand it over to Daniel to tell you how it came about.
Thank you, Arila. Yeah, welcome. So in this talk, throughout today, we have heard a lot about TSO, DSOs, Gen AI, grid planning, and we want to bring a little bit attention another topic that is equally important, which is access to electricity. And we want to shed some light on how open source is important in achieving access to electricity and how the OpenAMI project evolved as a collaboration of very diverse contributors and communities, so to speak. As of right now, around 92% of people have access to electricity, which is great, but it does raise the question, what do we do with the other 8%? And one thing to note is that a lot of people that currently don't have access to electricity live in very, very rural communities. Communities that are far separated, where building connecting them to the grid is very expensive or logistically not possible. And for these communities, mini-grids and off-grid technologies are very important, are projected to be the tool to provide them with electricity. This does enable very productive use cases in agriculture, running mills, et cetera, et cetera. So in the off-grid land space, there's a couple of challenges or tensions, I should say. So the reality is that these off-grid projects are mostly executed by either very small companies or also small local domestic companies. Also a thing that we observe, which is I think very, very great, is community-owned approaches where villages or communities act together to electrify themselves. But they may or may not struggle because there's policymakers around, there's certain regulations that have to be followed. Also, the financing is not so clear sometimes. There's some non-profit ventures that try to help out. There's public donor money, or also even private equity used. And yeah, sometimes even companies reinventing the wheel, doing the same thing over and over again. It's very, very scattered. So when talking to either companies and communities, one thing that comes apparent is that actually the energy production itself is comparatively easy. It relies on known technology. This is not so much the challenge. What actually the challenge ends up being is the distribution of the energy. So the metering, the vending of the energy that's not going to be for free, and load management. And what does that mean in practice? So there's mostly looking at hardware manufacturers and vendors, not necessarily provide solutions that are tailored to these markets. And the companies or communities that operate in rarely can rely on SLAs, SLO for the softwares. They're struggling a lot from vendor lock-ins. Remember, this is very remote communities. If some of the manufacturers leave the market or stop supporting their products, not only have you a pile of electronic waste, it's also very, very hard to replace this. Also, some of the solutions are not really tailored for that use case. For example, it can be repairability is very, very important, right? If these places are hard to reach, it's much more important that the devices are easy to repair and run for a long time. Also, network stability is not always a given, right? And then some of the devices require network connectivity to work, but we want to also support like offline or local vending use cases. And sometimes even some of the AMI solutions come with relatively high SaaS fees, which are, again, really not tailored for that use case. So the consequences of that are twofold. On the one hand side, this means very high fees on the end customers, but also like operational risk for the companies or communities doing that, which can lead to either them not doing it or trying and failing. So I want to look a little bit more on the technical details on how like a mini-grid site looks. This is an example. This is very, very detailed. So what are the like components used in an average mini-grid site? I don't want to go into super detail. I want to focus on a few of them. We're going to ignore the energy production. As I said, we assume this is relatively easy. The key components are really like the edge meters installed mostly on the households. These are not smart per se. They talk to a DCU, which is a data concentrator unit, via some protocols. There's actually a lot of protocols involved here, but protocols, let's say. And then we have a management platform. This is either a remote management platform or also like a local management platform. Remember, like if there's no network connectivity. There's also components about vending, be it local vending or mobile money. We ignore this for today. So we're focusing on these, more of the metering and management components. So looking at existing solutions, what happens is that different manufacturers or vendors, sometimes they don't even cover the entire stack. As some providers don't cover the local, like the non-network connected aspect of it. Some of them are not interoperable with each other, and yeah. And some of them provide that, but then again, some of the vendors also left the market and no longer support it. So this is kind of where we're at. So this is how the Open AMI project as an idea was born, to see, hey, for most of the stuff that are needed, we either already have open source components, or it's not so much an effort to develop the missing pieces for that. So what is Open AMI really? It's like a collection of open source tools that we want to design or improve such that they can work together. And not only that, that they can also like work on the interfaces, so you could even have some of the components being open source and some others proprietary, as long as they follow the same protocols. And yeah, as I mentioned, this was really started as Arila will share more about the history of that, but this is really not an idea that came up in one of our heads. It's really like a long journey of very different entities being involved, from people that are actually executing the projects to open source enthusiasts like ourselves, and this is how Open AMI is shaped up. So what are the benefits? Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits. I want to highlight the most important one. By doing this, we kind of get decentralization by design. This is very great. It enables community-owned models. Also, we heard a lot of conversations about data sovereignty. By using open source components, we get that by design. The second one, I think, is very important. These projects are very, very small. They don't really have the reach to make an impact for vendors to say, hey, we need this and this technology. By having a project like OpenAMI, we get like a unified voice. We can bundle the requirements under an open source umbrella to really prove, or not prove, but ensure the needs are heard and ideally implemented. Resilient infrastructure, vendor independence. If we follow the same protocols, if one component breaks, we can replace it. And transparent costs. Like there will always be costs, that is, I think, clear. But at least we know it's more transparent how these propagate. Yeah, and that's already what all I wanted to share, and handing it over to Arila.
Thank you, Daniel. And you might wonder how long it took us to get here, and long before 2024, REI Cameroon, which is an entrepreneur company in Cameroon providing mini grids to the local community, they just got to the 56 kilowatt scale. And they raised their concerns to the IEEE Smart Village about proprietary metering limits that Daniel just addressed. And they reached out to IEEE Smart Village for guidance. Well, how do we continue to survive in this market with these challenges that we listed? And EnAccess joined the initiative as well. As you know, EnAccess Foundation is focused on the energy open source in Africa community. And they brought in the open source expertise and also the local community access. And then in April this year, Energy IoT Open Source and IEEE Smart Village joined forces for a hackathon event during San Francisco Climate Week. And we said, well, we'll see what we can do about this in a hackathon event. So we were able to develop the prototype of the street pole EMS. You will see what that looks like in a minute. And also see, is there interop play between what is needed for communities in Africa and what is needed to make energy microgrids in homes accessible in disadvantaged communities in the United States, for example. So that's what we got, and this box continued to live in a true spirit of open source. So the prototype that got developed in April made its way to Cameroon, to the hackathon at the OSEA event. We were able to add a temperature sensor, and it's now streaming live data from Cameroon. And this is the activities that we continue to support this initiative. We have the field lab happening in Cameroon. This is engaging the OEMs that provide the current set of meters. And we have an open source in Oakland, California, where we can continue prototyping and simplifying the gateway that was developed so it continues to support plug-and-play repairability. And we also want to bridge the knowledge gap and continue to build expertise through mentorships by having mentors and mentees globally to learn how to use this technology and apply it locally. And a little bit of a deep dive, what those technical challenges were that it took like a global village to lift off. So one was the challenge about open source smart metering. And that's the edge meter, like what we usually be like on a street pole, connected to maybe 10, 12 houses. We're talking here 56 kilowatt mini grid, and how we can solve that. So this is the actual prototype EMS4. This is the open source gateway that has both two Modbus interfaces, CAN bus and an ESP32 computer, and that can provide local information, reading Modbus from the meters. This one particularly had 3 meters. It has leakage sensors on each line, and it has a temperature sensor on the box. And all that telemetry of information is streamed over MQTT to the cloud. And that's the software that does that is the Mesh EMS. And this thing was put together in a couple of days with collaboration with IEEE Smart Village, know-how from NESL.energy, think tank, and the hackathon participants that joined us that day. And like I said, it was about what messaging makes sense in that equipment. The equipment that I just showed you was about $50 off-the-shelf components. next thing was like, well, what protocols to pick up? In the world that the current mini utilities dealing with, DLMS and STS is the table stakes. Both of those are only available with proprietary AMIs. And as you can see, they're very, very old standards. Good, but standards that existed way before the PV storage generation took off. And they're still good for the utility scale, centralized transmission, distribution, consumption schemes. However, they really fail to serve the need of the communities that we just listed. And at the same time, prices and the initiatives from the world initiatives around energy for all and the energy for all has allowed the cost of these microgrids to go down, but still, if you look at 40 cents or 60 cents per kilowatt for a villager in Africa compared to, say, what I pay, I only pay 10 cents per kilowatt and I'm not a villager, we have a lot of work to do. And here is where we want to look into a newer standards like SunSpec 2030.5, PayGo token, which emerged a little, they're about 10 to 15 years old protocols, and also MQT. So that's where we're looking to a new initiative, the Open AMI Schema. And of course, we have a lot of open questions for standardization. Where we started is adapt some models from the SunSpec specification. For those of you that know Modbus, this will look a lot like Modbus models on purpose. Unlike DLMS, this is human-readable data, comes in JSON. Doesn't need to be looked into an object identification system for deciphering. And it also has some simplified harmonics and some environmental information that adds on tampering support and whatnot. So we're looking to a light protocol. We're looking for something that runs on a simple compute like ESP32. And what we're doing next is peer reviewing the spec with the IEEE Smart Village again, with the broader community there of engineers. And we hope to bring that as a standard and specification group under LF.energy. And that's what that Open AMI is about, is just like Geisa, like what can we do to enable these solutions and these communities to jumpstart their access without breaking the bank. And this is exactly what we are doing. We have the lab. We have, this is EnAccess. Yeah. Yes, you want to talk about the Spark Meter proprietary?
Yeah, just briefly, exactly. So there's a project around open, like Spark Meter is one of the, that was also on the slide before. In the process of open sourcing their AMI, so we want to see how much of that we can copy. They have very good support of that, like local vending, offline features. So we want to kind of going back to that, what I was saying earlier, reinventing the wheel to see how much can we maybe use it. The conversation has been going on for a while. So yeah, there's some overlap with OpenAMI, and we want to see how much we can actually utilize this or not. So conversations are in the works. And then you mentioned the LF.energy standard script.
Yes. And he's like how you can help us move this to the next level and grow our village. We have the mentor program, which is how we continue to propagate the knowledge. We can collaborate on the OpenAMI schema, and you can join the Discord channel at NESL.energy. They're working on the NPM integration. And Daniel will tell you more.
I just want to make some final advertising. Yeah, so if you are interested in open source in EnAccess, so we have a Discord server where we discuss many of the projects, OpenAMI being one of them, the micropower management being micropower manager, another one, which we didn't go into detail yet, but is also involved in the OpenAMI as one of the components. So if today made you curious and you want to expand or learn a bit more, that's always a good place to just say hello and meet people. Yep, would be very happy to see the one or the other of you there. And of course, the rest of today and tomorrow, just reach out to us.
Thank you very much.
Cool, we were fast, so we can have a question or two, if any. If not, I think it's also the end, just ask us outside. There's a reception now, right?
Yeah, it's the reception.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll take questions at the reception. Yes?
Maybe one question, what's the voltage level of the microgrids?
It's,
Question is, what is the voltage level of a microgrid?
the box I showed you, it was European size, so it was the 220 voltage, and those were single phase meters. And the box can accommodate about 12 of those. And we do have a prototype on the roadmap to have this. We found an open source meter, that component that combines 12 meters in one stack that can bolt on to the gateway, so that will make the box a lot simpler, increase safety, and again, repeatability of replacing parts easier. So like we said, yes, it might not be UL certified from day one, but at the same time, it's what is better to wait for months for the UL certified component, or be able to have some option and maybe work together to get it UL certified. Yes?
I'm asking this because in the Netherlands we are going to replace smart meters only because the communication unit is not applicable anymore. So maybe you can also reuse these kind of meters in your project.
Oh, I mean, wonderful. Like I mentioned, we are ideating on this in sunny California, so that we can adapt the same technology and get the wisdom of the communities like Silicon Valley and apply that in Africa. And that's where our subject matter experts come from. And we teach, most of our students are from Africa and Asia in our mentorship programs. Yes, absolutely. And we actually, our next version was to have the optional communication modules. The ESP32 comes with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, because that's the idea, is to be autonomous, mesh first, like local network first, cloud second. It also comes with an Ethernet component, so you can do that on a hard wire as well, not just over Wi-Fi. And I think also optional radio and a storage battery for resilience. So we're getting feedback. That's what's the beauty of open source. It's like, yes, but, and we're like, okay, it's open source. We publish the specs, we try it out. We want to put it in people's hands and see how we can make this possible for more communities.
I don't know.
I think it's about 60 was that village that you saw, and it's a central mini grid, about 40 to 50 kilowatts, and then it's distributed to the village. But we can get that details to you. So you can follow REI Cameroon. They publish that.
hardware, for instance, how is that handled? If there's a need for hardware replacement,
You want to answer that?
Well, then someone has to ultimately drive up and replace or fix like a technician has to drive up and try to fix the hardware if possible. And if it has to be replaced, then I guess whoever's owning the devices has to do like a financial, like what does it financially mean? But yeah, so that can, depending on, like if it's one device broken, then you can exchange one device, right? But then, yeah, someone would have to go and replace it. If multiple of them fail or like a core unit fails, then you have a more fundamental problem. Yeah, so REI Cameroon is one example of a small, like a mini grid operator. This is considered a small company that runs multiple mini grids in Cameroon. So if one of their mini grids has a problem, then the end customers normally, this is very different from project to project. Like what's the communication channel? Sometimes you have agents in the village which are like loosely affiliated with the operator, but they have like a communication channel. They say, oh, I have a problem with this meter. Mostly it's payment related, but can also be meter related. And then the owner or the operator has to decide what to do, right? If they ship like a new meter or if they first send someone trying to fix it. Probably both in that order. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? If not,
You have one more?
one more. Sure, go ahead, please.
there was that slide you showed with the 3 lines. I don't know if you could go back on it and sort of explain what it meant, because I didn't understand it. I think you already skipped it. No, not this one, the one with the...
Oh.
Yeah. That one.
Okay, so you have the mini grids. Okay, so one is the standards like over time, right? So from 1980s, you have DLMS and STS. And there's newer standards emerging around 2010, like SunSpec and PayGo token. STS is a secure transfer session protocol, which is a way to manage fixed length tokens for prepaid metering. PayGo token is a new mechanism, also encrypted, which gives you more choices of both transport and size of and type of token. SunSpec is a pretty newer standard around DERs like inverters and storage batteries, etc. It's very compatible with 2030.5. And that's what we chose to use in communicating and standardizing components. If you can speak SunSpec as an inverter or a battery, you can be easily replaced in a system of balance. Otherwise, you like starting over the integration game. And the other one was about the mini grids. You know, it is like from an experiment to just recently in 2020s when you get to see 10,000 of those mini grids. Those are like 1 megawatt and less space, right? And the cost of those mini grids. Some of them were starting with diesel. Mini grids were just having a diesel generator, no solar involved. And by introducing PV and programs that sponsor and encourage energy access, that cost has going down. However, it's still not very friendly to the local economy. I mean, 40 cents is still more. I'll be hurt if I paid 40 cents a kilowatt. I don't know about you, but that is a lot when you're used to paying 10 cents or less. Yeah, so if we can continue to partner on how to increase the scale, like we believe OpenAMI as a schema standard and as an open source initiative can increase both, help increase the scale of solar hybrid mini grids and also reduce the cost of those mini grids. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.